my name is Sam I-Shan, and I'm a guest programmer for the 32nd International Film Festival in Singapore. I'm joined today by Maxence Stamatiadis and Su Huiyu, whose respective films, The Day Today and Future Shock, screened on 28th November 2021 at the National Museum Singapore, which is one of our venues for the festival. So I'll introduce the two artists briefly, and then we'll speak together about their works. So Su Huiyu is based in Taiwan, and his works explore the connection between mass media, pop culture, and the post-colonial history of Taiwan and East Asia. He works in the medium of film, video, and installation, as well as performance. So Maxence Stamatiadis is based in France, and he graduated from l'École des Arts Décoratifs. His short films are shown in festivals across Europe, and The Day Today is his debut feature film. So welcome to you both, and I'd like to start with you, Su. So you came of age in the 1980s, and in your work, there's a consciousness of what it means to kind of experience generational change after the end of martial law in Taiwan in 1987, and what that kind of meant for the consumption of media, the control of media, and the effects of globalization on Taiwan. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask you what it was that led you to connect the kind of landscape of Kaohsiung as well as the translated text of Alvin Toffler in your work Future Shock.
Well, it's a pretty long story, but I will try to make it short. Because I got the book from my grandfather's bookshelf, and I think it was 5 years ago, and he passed away for a few years already. But we tried to to arrange his room or his stuffs, and I just realized that book is so amazing, because actually I brought that book today. This one is the Chinese version, but actually the very beginning was in the 1970s, the year of 1970, Future Shock, and 2 years later this one was translated to Taiwan, to the Chinese. I think Singapore also, in mainland China, they also have their own version. But it's about 2 years later, then this book was introduced to Taiwanese audience, and it's actually quite popular. And this is something about a very new, discipline called futurology theory. And this is very new to Taiwanese at that moment as well. And I think it's opened a question to me, like it started a question to me, like why should my grandfather will be interested about futurologist theory. And actually he's the so-called farmer from the agricultural era in Taiwan mostly. Although he of course he were facing like a modernization during the even during the Japanese colonial year before World War II. Then after World War II, when KMT Party, Kuomintang, the Chinese nationalists, came to Taiwan, and they started the so-called westernization process, or the modernization process in Taiwan. It gradually changed the society in Taiwan. And as you mentioned, during the 1980s, Taiwan, after the lifting of martial law, Taiwan also changed the role in the global society. They tried to join the supply chain of the globalization. So for most of Taiwanese of their generation, this kind of to me it's like a black hole, because I grew up after that, during the late 80s in the elementary school. So the conscious is quite still very blurred at that moment. So to me, it's a kind of collective memory to them, but not to myself. It's like in between. I couldn't say that is part of my memory. It's too blurred to me. So when I got that book, and the cover is also very sci-fi style. It's actually not Taiwan. The cover of the book is actually it's called World Fair in Osaka in Japan in 1970 as well. It's the same year of the publication of the book, English one. So I think there are so many interesting coincidences and invisible link in this, from Alvin Toffler, from America, from this influential Western theory thinker or something, and he became so influential in the mid 70s and traveled to the world. And Taiwan as a newer country or a newer modern country, they faced the impact, not just the Western wave, but including this kind of thing. So yeah, sorry, I didn't answer it very well, but this is how I began to try to tell the story about the book, and I found the best thing that I can find in Taiwan nowadays, which can reflect this kind of memory or feeling, would be Kaohsiung, because the Kaohsiung city was a kind of industrial city in southern Taiwan, and the Taiwanese government, they started a series of process to renew the city also during the 1970s. So if you visit the city, you can see a lot of kind of you can feel that from the surface of the city, the factories, some ruins, and the 1970s style architecture, and the buildings and also the interior in some institutes. They still keep that kind of ambience, and I think that which is a very good interface for me to start the storytelling, the narrative things. Yeah, this is my answer. Do I really answer your question? I don't even know that.
No, I think it's great, and you brought up many topics that I think have a lot of resonance with Maxence's film. So I'm glad you talked about this connection with your grandfather, because obviously the grandfather figure is very important in the day-to-day. And also I like how you mentioned that the Chinese translation has the cover of the Chinese translation has the Osaka World's Fair, because that's really a very utopic gesture, and to kind of juxtapose that with the very slightly bleak vision that Toffler presented is an interesting choice by the Chinese publishers. So I think that's a nice segue to a question for Maxence. So the day-to-day is on some level it's really quite a dystopic film, and it seems to have some sci-fi elements, if you can call it even that. But it's actually set in 2024, which is not so far in the future from us. So could you just speak about why you chose to set it during this time frame, and in fact the two kind of time frames that are mentioned in the film, and what exactly that says about how you view the present as well as the future that we're going into?
So I'll try to answer by echoing what you just said before. In your film, as I watched it, I think there is that's how I felt it. There's an element of, as you're saying, showing this city that has a big hope and now is full of ruins, and setting the vision from the future that you took from the book in this environment is, in my opinion, a kind of way to highlight a form of disappointment in the future. I mean, the future didn't happen exactly as it was planned, or it was kind of a failure in some points. And I think, and this is the first time I discovered the term futurology, because I went to check online. And I would say that my movie has kind of a similar link to the future, because the future I try to depict in the movie is made of disappointment, and the way I try to show that is that showing a future that looks exactly like the present, like nothing has changed. My movie is basically shot in the present. I didn't I just imagined this app that could bring back the dead, but apps and the way it's made and the way it's used on a tablet and stuff are stuff we already have in the present, because I have the feeling, and that's something that drives my work, I think, that we already live in a future, because we are so surrounded with crazy technology and and so many things that I have the feeling to already live in the future, but the future we live in is kind of disappointing. I mean, I also grew up in the late 80s, and I think I grew up with these big ideas that the future would be like a terrific place and super enthusiastic. I thought we would have flying cars, we would go to Mars, we would have like world peace, and everybody would like be well together. And then we had this future which in the end, world peace is not even something we can imagine. We have just iPhones that everybody is watching all day. We have like electronic scooters, and it's super disappointing. I mean, for somebody like me, it's really disappointing. So that's what I think I tried to show in the movie, like showing a future that is resemble already the present we have. And but also it's not only pessimistic, because in my movie, this future that doesn't work also kind of produces something, because at some point my grandmother, as a character in the movie, in real life when we did the shooting, was able to see her husband again, and it doesn't work. He goes on and kills people, so it's messy, it's not well done, but for a brief second there's a small miracles that manage to happen. And I think the technology we have today allows for that kind of really small miracles, but it lasts for not even a second. It's really brief, but I think we can achieve that, and that's already something. But yeah, I mean, I'm also reading a book right now, which is called, I have it here also. I can show my book. So it's called The Man Without Qualities, and it was written by Robert Musil in early 20th century, and it depicts the future in a very modern way at some point. And it says that at this point they had cars, like all the mythological magic that the humanity used to know for hundreds of years became real because of cars. We can have it's like the gods going very fast. Now we have cars, the gods talking together. Now they had telephones and stuff. But he says that already this is kind of disappointing, because it's not as poetic as it used to be in mythology. And he said, what we gain in reality, we lost in dream. And it's something like that. I think yeah, future did happen, but it's kind of disappointing. It's not as magnificent that we dreamed it would be. And I think your movie, in another way and in another way of saying it, kind of deals with the same idea. That's how I felt it.
I totally agree. I see the same thing in your movie when I'm trying to understand everything, and I realize, oh my God, this is actually what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, both your films contain, yourself as the filmmaker and your source text, or maybe your source technology, kind of looking back and forth. And whatever it is, it's that the, like the source text says about the future is really what our present is. So I think that's extremely rich. I'd like to kind of move towards, yes, Maxence.
Yeah, if I just can add something, I think it's also, it must say something that two people same age at like literally the extreme opposite of the world, and in cities that don't look like really much, have the same feeling. I mean, it's kind of, it must be something shared a lot, I guess, all over the world, because obviously you can bring back together films that have been made like really far away, and they basically have the same idea at the center of it. So
yeah, it's really fascinating. Actually, there's one small difference that I like to kind of like raise now, and maybe ask both of you to respectively speak about it. So despite the kind of very common feelings that undergird both your impulses in making your respective works, I think that, just looking at them visually, especially when they're juxtaposed and they screen one after another, you can see the aesthetic is quite different. So Su, your like the films look is very polished, like it's very futuristic and artificial. Of course, you have your classic well-used slow motion technique, which is so familiar and all it works. So can you explain a little bit more about why you chose to use this approach when you're filming topless kind of vision of the future, and perhaps also shed a bit of light as to why you chose those particular texts that you did to highlight in the film?
Okay, I try to answer it logically, but I try. And when I think I spent when I got a book, it was the first time I saw it, but it was from 1970s. So I was quite impressed. Like actually, the first impression is like, oh my God, it's a future from the past. It's a prediction from the past. It's not a prediction from now. So when I got the predictions, these theories is already very old. It's from 5 decades and before. So this is quite romantic to me in a sense. I know it sounds weird, but it's very, for many, like for generation like us in Taiwan, like our history is very blurred because of the martial law, and we don't the history is not that transparency. We don't have the transparency of the whole history, and it is not that free to. We don't have that much space before to interpret our own story. After 2000, I think everything became more normal as other countries, like more, the society is more like westernized and democracy or more open to the world. So of course now it's getting better, but our childhood is quite blurred. And when I got this book, this is the first impression from that. I think something is invisible between me and the book. Definitely, I had to find that. So, and then another word appears is the so-called alternative modernity to me, because what the book describes and is not is giving us a imagination, like there is a bright new future, is a whole brand new future waiting for us, is standardized, is very, it should be very progressive, perfect, clean, and well organized, and but which is not, of course. And we knew that is why we had that kind of idea, that alternative modernized or Asian version modernized. Like everybody has their own way to practice that. And of course now you see in what happened in China, in Japan, in Korea, in Taiwan, and Singapore, or other, other countries. They all have problems or new issues that they haven't expected before. So eventually, I think I'm not a I'm not a philosopher or expert about that. So the only way is to feel it. I know it sounds crazy, but I was like a poet, or like making a poet or a psychedelic imagination. So I visit Kaohsiung, city of Kaohsiung, many times before I'm preparing, and then I decided, yes, this is a city I want to do it, and so I cite several theories or prediction from the book. It's not a whole book, of course. And then I think maybe I should try something that I really feel strong, and I try to make it more. The coverage is more reasonable. Like they talk about the organs and over human life, and also lifestyles. So it's not that logical, but so the mission this time is try to give people a very strong impression. Like there is a book, there is a theory from the past, it's a future from the past, and it talks about nowadays. And this is so this is my strategy to do the film. That's it. And I keep these keywords in mind, like alternative modernization and the future from the past, and it's something like that. And I don't feel like everything. There are totally 10 chapters in this short film, and also I also made a 3-channel version, as you know that. And 3-channel version is more like to me it's like more like a visualized experience, immersive feeling about the book, about these kind of. So I would like to invite audience to go go into the dream. It was like a dream. It would be like a dream to them, and like poetic process. I don't know. And in a sense, it was like my previous logic when I'm making other movies or videos. It's not theoretical narrating. It's more like my personal theater for the audience. And then it's kind of mix of my personal memories, but also the collective experience of Taiwan.
Yeah, I think one really sees that in the film, also the 3-channel versions, the sense of scale, what architecture can do in terms of, realizing something that's quite monumental and huge in this quite expensive vision. And actually, Maxence, I think that your film, on the contrary, in a way, looks quite almost like a rather smaller and shabbier version of what the future is, because it is our present. And it's shrunken even more because there's so many screens within the film itself. And it's all kind of like generational screens. Like you got a TV, you got your phone, you got, like networked phones and devices and so forth. So could you talk about your choices in terms of why you decided to kind of shoot and edit the film this way, and why it's got a very distinctive look, not just in terms of the way you implemented the documentary footage that you had collected, kind of edited, as well as doing the kind of rather lo-fi effects that you did, and in your treatment of the different characters and plot lines in the film.
Yeah, actually, to answer that, I have to get back to how the film was done, because at the beginning it wasn't thought as a movie you saw at all. It was another project. It started like 8 years ago, so it's also started like you, with a grandfather and a book, because that was the starting point. My grandfather, when I was younger, 18, I asked him to write me a book for my birthday, and he had never written, but then eventually he liked it very much, and he started to write every day and every day and every day. And the first thing I wanted to shoot 8 years ago was about his writings, because he had a lot of writings about fantasies of revenge. He wrote about killing a lot of people that bothered him every day, like neighbors, like administration, cops, whatever. And so I really liked what he wrote, and that was the first idea, to do a documentary about my family, and then to reenact this fantasized vengeance of killing. But that my grandfather died really quickly after we started shooting, like months later, and then I had to finish this movie, and then I kept on going on the same place at my grandmother. I kept on shooting her. I kept on shooting this place that I really love, because they love. They live on a highway, above a highway. Their apartment directly is above the highway, and it's a place that nobody stops there, because it's messy. It's really it's a place where people pass with cars, but they don't stop there. And I was really attracted by this place, and so I shot there a lot. And then 2 years ago, I said, okay, I have all these rushes, and I need to make something out of it. And my first idea was, okay, I'm going to make a movie to bring back my grandfather. And that's how it became a sci-fi movie, because, okay, I said, then if I have to bring him back, it will take place in the future, like, and then I found the whole app system to make it work, and then that's how it became a sci-fi movie. But then at first it wasn't thought to be like that, and that's why it's shot the way it is, because it was shot to be more of it wasn't shot to tell the same story. And also some parts are shot in some way with my camera alone. Some parts are more futuristic because they were done at another time with a crew. So I had all this rush, and I took 2 years, and I had to create the scenario from the rush I had and find a story that could fit and that could tell this bringing back of the grandfather. So the aesthetics also came from that, and from the need to make Rush come together. I mean, most of the time in the movie, when two people are talking together, in reality they are 7 years apart, because one shot, is from my grandfather 7 years ago, and the shot you see answering it is my grandmother like 2 years ago. So I had to find a way and even if it doesn't look like it, I think that 90% of the movie shots are heavily edited, because I had to, to make it work, I had to find one image of my grandfather looking the right way, then stretch this image, turn it that way, change the eyes so it would look more down, and so everything is super edited, and that's why I didn't try. At some point I forgot about trying to make it polish, or I said, okay, let's go with the messy aesthetics, because I can't hide it anyway. I'm just like doing a Frankenstein cutting and pasting and stuff, so I will keep this aesthetics. And also I thought after some point that it really did fit the visions of the future I was trying to show, because I think the first vision I really had for the movie, the way it is now, was one day I went to my grandmother, and when we have lunch at noon, she has the TV on, always, and the TV wasn't straight; it was like that. And then she took her smartphone and put it under the TV to straighten the TV, and I thought, okay, that's super fun. Her whole link to technology is like that. For her, a smartphone is something that you can just use to straighten the TV, and these technologies that it's super futuristic already looks super old. And then the DV camera and the way it's messy, the way it's shot, I think really could tell that, and that's why I prefer to have like a super low fee effects, because anyway, we already, as I said before, we're already in the future, and by just having something pop under the head, you can tell a different story. I mean, these rushes are from my grandfather 7 years ago, and then you just put something on his head, and now he's not just an old man that doesn't talk, he's a robot that doesn't work. And so like that's why I think the aesthetic comes from all these things.
Yeah, I think it really works as well, because there's somehow a lot of emotion in this kind of very lo-fi, accessible aesthetic. And it's interesting that you're speaking about how to kind of reconstruct the past, because Su, I think that this is really something that is key to your work, especially your current work. Perhaps Future Shock may not exactly fit within your reshooting series, but you've always kind of found very marginal or forgotten or transformed texts, and then change them into something that is kind of like what might be called a speculative remake, whether or not it's a film or like a script, a play script, or stories or TV programs. So I think we can really see echoes with Maxence's work, in the sense that you're trying to reanimate something, bring something back, but it somehow changes and becomes something else. So could you speak a little bit about this, and what draws you to act upon this impulse to reshoot in your work in general?
Yeah, I think it was after 2000, as I mentioned, like I think more and more gradually, more and more Taiwanese artists, they feel that they have the responsibility to be part of the building the historical archive. To it was like a dictators, or like, and after the martial law, it was 3 decades after the martial law lifting, but we still not have a stable common sense of what we are, or what the country should be or should go. That is always like a struggling in the island, and also the identity as well. As you know, also Taiwan became quite like a flash spot these months, because of the tense between the island and China, Taiwan and China. So you can imagine that identity issue is always a main topics in most of the Taiwanese, including artists group as well. So I think I'm also one of them. Those who try to redefine and re-describe, and also to find a new way out of this kind of more and more like a meaningless this struggling about the identity things. I'm kind of tired about that. But so I think it's naturally I started this process since 2015, nearly 6 years ago. And I think maybe it's a new there I can find a new method about that. We are not trying to expand the archive, not trying to expand the documents only, because this is a very common way in contemporary art. We try to artist was like a curator. They reorganize some documents or papers or footages, historical footages, and they try to re-narrate the history or reconstruct a story of the region or the country of the people here. And then I think maybe there's a new way. Like I try to mix my personal experience, because I was born in 1976 and grew up in 1980s. The whole 1980s is a very unique moment of the country as well, because of the democratic movement, social movement, even including gay LGBTQ movement started from the era, and also the lifting of martial law happened, and I was just a kid. So everything is so blurred to me. I knew there was something happening there, but I just could not describe that clearly and logically. But maybe that is also my problem, because I feel that I experience that with families and our mates. And then now is a good timing, because also we have a national archive, and the film archive was quite complete right now. So this is very convenient nowadays, that you can approach a lot of materials you want, which is difficult before. And so this is why as you know, I started to visit the archive and get the scripts, also some old missing films which cannot discover before, and now they are rediscovered. So so I think this is why I started I call it reshooting, because aside the word from film industry as well, this is when people, when the whole production was finished and they realized that, oh my God, there's one things we didn't do it well, or we do it wrong, so we have to fix the problem. We have to go back to the specific location to finish that again. And so, which means reshooting, or so-called pickup, is not that you remake the whole film again. You just remake part of it, or some specific takes or things over there. And I think it's a good hint to Taiwanese history, because we are not built reconstruct and redefine the whole things. But it's not totally wrong, right? It was banned or forbidden previously, and we were like detectives, like trying to get everything clearly. And my job is like to reshoot part of it, and it's more like a expanded how do you say, narrative. And also it's kind of, I try to dig a hole to open the imagination. So there is just no one answer or one version of the history, and it's more like an open or invitation to the people. Like there's something happened here, and you might be attracted by my images. You will be interested about what happened here, about the history, and maybe that is a similar experience happened in other places as well. We can share it. And yeah, I like this way of communication, and also the sharing the collective memories as well. Yeah.
I really think that in both your works, you both use the medium of film to, speak either historically or philosophically about some very pressing issues of like time and history. So, I think like going back to you, Maxence, I think that you alluded to this just now when you spoke about how the film itself is reanimating your your grandfather who passed away in the same way that the act itself does it. So it's actually part of the storyline, but also part of the structure of the film, you as a filmmaker making that gesture. So, bearing in mind what Sue just spoke about, is this something that you are also philosophically driven by, the notion of using film to kind of regain something that's lost, or kind of rehabilitate another kind of story you want to tell? Or is it something that you search for in general?
Yeah, obviously, yes, but I think not in the same way, because what you were saying, from what I understand from the other movies you did, but that I haven't seen, but from the one I've seen also, there's also a real idea of a collective history and a collective missing history in the center of your work. Living in France, we don't have the same, how do you say, a link to our history, because our history, with all its mistakes and bad and good things, is also very clear. I mean, we know the history of France very well. France is really proud of its history. So I don't think I have a collective thing to bring back in my movies. But then I think it's more on a personal level. In a personal level, I do think that movies is a place where you can not bring back, but try at least to bring back something that has disappeared. And I think the movies that move me the most are the one dealing with that, with the fact of bringing back. I mean, that's something I said quite often about the movie, but my main reference for the movie was The Lion King, because there's this scene that I know by heart, the center of The Lion King, where Simba has grown up, and then he meets the monkey Rafiki, and then he sees his father in the sky coming back, and the whole scene is like, for me, it's the essence kind of cinema. I mean, I like other movies obviously, but I mean, I never cry in movies or in life, but each time I see this bit from The Lion King, I cry each time, because I think it's so well done, and you, as a spectator, you're in front of, it's a miracle, and you say, no, it's not possible that it happened, and then it does happen, and Mufasa really is in the sky, and this is the beauty of cinema, that until the last moment you can think it won't happen because it's not possible that it does, and then it does. And I think in the movie I did the center part where my grandfather comes back. I did edit at first. I had put The Lion King under, and I edited, shot by shot, to try to mimic exactly the same sequence as The Lion King, which didn't really work. But I wanted to have the same feeling of, okay, until the last minute you're saying like it's not possible and it's not going to happen, because it's really not possible, and then it does happen. And I think, yeah, cinema is I have a good example about that. I don't know if you have seen, there is a new Star Wars series on Disney Plus. It's called Mandalorian. And so, you see, yeah.
My son was crazy about it. Mandalorian. Very cool one, actually. Yeah,
it's a cool one. And so, at the end of the second season of Mandalorian, so the heroes they are trapped basically, and robots are coming at them, and they're doomed, and they're gonna die. And then a warrior comes and starts killing all the robots. And as the scene goes on, you're starting to wonder, because he has a hood, so you can't see his face. And then he comes, and as you're watching the scene, you're starting to think, oh, but that's Luke Skywalker, the hero from the original saga, but you're also saying like, but that's not possible, because Luke Skywalker actor is now 70 years old, so it couldn't be him. And then as the scene goes on, you're like, no, but it's him. It must be him. There's no other ways. And so he kills the robots. He comes into the room, and you're like, it's mind blowing, because you're like, it has to be Luke Skywalker, but it can't be. And then he takes off his hood, and under the hood, it is Luke Skywalker, the young one, the one we left 30 years before, like the one I used to watch as a kid. And you got to see on internet, if you write it on YouTube, you see the people's reaction to this moment. People are crying, like all over internet. People are just like tears, like really crying, because they see their hero from their childhood comes back. And so it's really beautiful. And then he starts talking, and it's really badly done, because it's a deep fake, like not really well done. He moves like with 3D stuff, and it's really disappointing. But for a brief moment, like, you had the feeling that the hero that you left 30 years ago, that was your hero of childhood, really did come back. And I think that's one of the beauties of cinema. And the beauty is not that it achieved to do it well, it's that it tries to do it, and then it fails, but it tries to do it.
They should let him be quiet. Then that will make it work.
Yeah, because even though cinema is magic, there's limitations to it, and it takes a very savvy artist or director to know when to stop, right? But yeah, okay. So I think that we've running a little bit out of time, but before I move on to ask each of you a last question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything that you kind of want to say to each other or ask each other, having just come to know about your respective practices and also the films?
I feel very happy that when I watch your film, because I see there are some similar, how do you say, aesthetics point of view in between us. Like the way we film the modern urban area or the modern life is something like, it was like I saw someone who has the same taste with me, which is very touching. Like, and also I can feel what you are thinking, and also it's very touching to see this film, because it's in between the documentary and the fiction, and so yeah, I would love to watch it again. Yeah.
And as for me, I think that I was really surprised to find out what we said before also, first, that we can share I mean, we know that everywhere in the world people can share the same feelings and stuff, but it's always when it's your movie confronted to another movie, it's even more touching to see that somebody at the other end of the world has the same feeling and has a way of expressing it, that it's not the same, but that is echoing. And so there's this vision of the future, but I think there's also all this like link to the past, the way that you were saying before. It's a future from the past, and mine is a failed future from the present. So I mean, I think it's I was really moved to see and in a completely different aesthetics of image, but to see these connections between our movies, and now I want to see the other movie you talked about. And so I think sometimes they put movies together and it's harder but then this was like a really good combination, I guess.
Yeah, I was very happy to be inspired by this connection. And I see the introspection in your film, and also that is also what I'm looking for in my own production. Yeah. And also the next one, my next one is coming up, as I mentioned before to I-Shan, like the Future Shock 2 second episode, like Star Wars. I'm making the second episode next month. It will be a feature, so I hope I won't be failed, and I hope I won't disappoint you.
Super, great. Looking forward to it as well. Well, thank you so much to both of you, Su and Maxence, for a wonderful conversation. And we're really looking forward to seeing more new work from you. And we'd like to thank the audiences for watching the films, and please continue supporting the Singapore International Film Festival. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, I-Shan.